Hi, Mary.
Hi, Emma.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. It's nice to finally meet you.
Yeah.
So tell me about what you do.
So I am a physical therapist, and I recently started my own online health coaching and fitness training business last year. So I left kind of the traditional healthcare, and now I'm really just focusing on, training women, mainly former athletes that, have lost that spark and, that all or nothing mindset, trying to shift that because in my first 2 years of sobriety, I used exercise as my addiction coping mechanism and didn't
Yeah.
really like address a lot of the internal stuff. And, you know, thinking back at it, it was because of a lot of imposter syndrome. Um, Everybody kept telling me, oh, you're no fun. Oh, you don't say that you don't act this way, all these other things. And I'm like, well, because I was always drunk. Like
Wow.
I'm being more myself now. And so like trying to fight and so I fight those demons by just like exercising myself to exhaustion, basically chasing the adrenaline rush of, running races and pushing myself to limits until I pushed myself to a burnout this last year and was forced to really dive deeper and address those internal issues and, you know, become more aligned with who I truly am.
Well, that's it. There's so much in there, isn't there? What you've just said. And there's I know a lady when I was in rehab. She was in her 60s and she was just wonderful. I loved her, little Irish woman. And she left rehab and she started going to the gym every single day. And she looked worse than when she went into rehab after like a couple of
Uh-huh.
months. It was frightening. Um, that all or nothing, I can really relate to that as well. Um, not in sport because I'm very lazy. Well, I'm not lazy. I love my sport, but I can't do team games because I can't let anyone else down. So I'm always any single sport, I'm fine, but I won't play anything as part of a team because I don't want to let anyone else down. And yeah, people think that when you get in recovery, just getting rid of the substance, you'll be fine. And it's so that's when the hard work starts. And the friendships as well, the amount of people that I've spoken to, and I've said, look, like your husband, wife, whatever, it's not going to be the same. They're going to be a completely different person. And you might not
Hmm.
have liked them drinking, but you might not like them sober either. It's gonna,
Right.
it's huge.
Well, and just the roller coaster of trying to find yourself after, being, with addiction has been, really hard because, those voices in your head, like you've got everybody telling you. So for me, for the longest time, it was, growing up like, oh, Mary, you can't say that. Mary, you can't say that. Then when you're drinking, it was Mary, you can't say that. Mary, like that was rude. Mary, you shouldn't do that. And then when I got sober, it was Mary, you can't say that. Like, why are you saying that? Like, so then it was just like I shut down, like even using my voice, like I just internalized everything, worked out and like, you know, pushed out, I mean, running stellar times faster than I'd ever ran it, in high school and college and like pushing myself harder or like to limits that I'd never achieved, being a college athlete. I was like, okay, like I can do these things, but then, you know, being forced with the burnout and having to sit with those thoughts, like I really had to find who I was inside and stop letting all those voices and just, using different strategies to reprogram my mind. And, that's what I had to do. I just recently did a bikini competition. I don't know if you've seen my photos on
I
um,
haven't yet,
Media
no.
Firestorm. I posted them in one of the wins because Angel wanted to see them. So I posted them in there. But like overcoming the imposter syndrome to do that, like I really dove into and I, my free guide that I have been giving out, um, just to because I mean, it really truly transformed my ability to overcome like that very masculine basketball player mindset, like kind of a bull. I wouldn't say I was a bully, but like I was just like a very intense basketball player, like
Yeah.
shoving, pushing, I was the center, 6 foot. And so having to like bring it all together and be able to be like balance that feminine energy with my masculine and like being on that stage thinking like, it's safe to do this, like, and just stepping into a different mindset. Um, I had to create an alter ego because I felt like a big imposter for the longest time, but I just constantly reassured myself, like, I'm graceful, I'm feminine, I can do these things. And I did it and I felt amazing. Like
That is
the
fantastic.
how I felt on that stage was like the most incredible feeling in the world because knowing that I could actually embody something like that and overcome 35 years of being, this bully basketball player.
Yeah. Oh, that's tell me about your journey then.
With like, well, I mean, I started drinking at 17 and really just because I wanted to fit in with everybody around me. Because I just never had a close group of friends. I felt like, I had a lot of friends, but I never just had like that close, even just like one friend. I didn't feel like connected to any girls. I always, hung out with the guys.
Yeah.
Um, so drinking allowed me to feel like I fit in with them. And then it just, my dad was an alcoholic. I mean, I grew up around a lot of drinking. I, used to joke like I fell off a bar stool when I was 2 years old and busted my teeth because my dad had me at the bar. Like, so I used to like validate, like, it's okay to drink. Like, it's fine. Like, this is life. And drank through college. I played college basketball. I drank through that. I was very functional and I lost my dad in 2011. He, I was a senior in college. I was also intertwined with a breakup. So I really got really heavy into drinking gin, because it just numbed the pain. And I literally would drink to blackout. And one night in like March, I think it was March or April after my dad passed away, I took sleeping pills, hoping I just wouldn't wake up because I was so anxious. I was so uncomfortable. I just was miserable. And I woke up. I took that as a sign that, you know, God needed me here more. And I did. So I'd gotten rejected from my top choice PT school right when my dad went on hospice in early February. And I didn't know what I was going to do after graduation. I had a couple other schools that I was waiting to hear from, but I ended up, seeking counseling, got my drinking under control. I mean, I still drank on the weekends, still binge, but it was not like it was. And then I went to PT, I ended up getting into PT school, moved away like 3 hours from home, which definitely helped. I mean, still binging on the weekends, but I wouldn't drink during the week at all. Like, so it really like helped suppress that, need for alcohol because I was so busy. I do a little more retail therapy and shopping and buying things, but you know, fill one void with the other.
That's it.
And um, that messy breakup ended, continued on. We tried to work through it and ended up having to go back to counseling when I was in PT school because I just had PTSD so bad. Like my memory was just gone. Like I couldn't process, focus on, studying. And this was a very intense program, like 10-week quarters. So I was like, I'm paying all this money to be here. I have to figure out a way to get through here. Like there's a reason I'm here. And ended up, graduating, moving in with the toxic boy. We ended up getting married in 2015. All the signs were there that I shouldn't do that, but I was didn't know any different because I was 20 when we got together and, that's all I'd seen like kind of relationship wise with my parents. Um, he was cheating on me basically the entire time we were together. I just ignored my gut. He'd always, tell me I was crazy if I'd bring it up. And um, in 2018, we'd only been married about 2 years. He told me he didn't wasn't in love with me anymore. I was like, well, are you back with so and so? And he said no. Well, he was, and I fought for that marriage for 2 years. My drinking was, when we were married, my drinking was bad, like especially on the weekends. Like during the week, I, made a point not to drink really during the week because going to work, being a professional, I couldn't do that. But I would black out because I was just so alone and lost. And drinking just masked it. And I'd feel miserable the next day. And he'd, punish me, emotionally because I was in bed. And it was just a cycle of a lot of shame and guilt. And I'd put on the strong persona. And I, fought for that marriage for 2 years, ended in 2020. I lost my job the day after our divorce was final. COVID happened. So this was in February. COVID happened in March, in the US. Like that's when it all got crazy. I ended up getting a job lined up that wasn't, that wasn't an issue, but I kept telling myself, oh, this is a fresh start. Well, then the world shut down. So all I did was go to work, come home and drink. Like it was just a cycle. And I literally drank probably every day. I met a guy, we were drinking buddies, we drank together because you couldn't go to the bars. And we were together a year and a half. And I kept saying, like, I need to cut back on my drinking. I need to cut back. And, he was not supportive of it. Finally, I was just like, one day I got so angry. I was like, I'm done with you. Well, then I proceeded to drink for another 6 or 8 months, like every single day. And December of 21, my younger sister got engaged. And I mean, it just like overwhelming. Like I would felt like a failure. Like I'm your big sister. I'm going to be your maid of honor. And I'm no role model. Like I failed marriage. I'm still bitter. I'm still angry, but I'm the fun drunk and, nobody knows the pain that I have inside. And I proceeded to drink heavy for the next 8 days. And my grandpa passed away in that period. And at his funeral, I was beyond numb, like no emotions. Like I was sad, but I couldn't express that. And the day after his funeral, I was like, I'm done. I'm taking a break because I have to get myself in a better position to support my sister on her journey, not thinking I'd be coming up on 3 years sober at that time, but I navigated, her bachelorette party in Nashville with 18 girls staying sober. And I was like, if I can do that, I can fucking do anything. Yeah. So yeah, I'll be 3 years sober on January 4th. And I, just continue to chase things and, fitness challenges, which now I don't know where I'm going with that. I really am going to focus. I think this next challenge is going to be more like a lot of deep internal work and just really honing in because I know like the last few months, like with this, the bikini competition, it brought up a lot of things from my past with my ex-husband. And it's just, there's just been like so many of the things that I'm like, these red flags, like, why didn't I see them? So I just need to work through a lot of that because dating has been very hard for me ever since then. And I numb out on other things instead of like focusing on that because it's uncomfortable. And I truly desire a family and to have a partner in life. And that was, again, one of the reasons I got sober. But I know I continuously like restrict on that. And so, yeah, like doing all these podcasts on the different angles of my journey have really brought light to a lot of things. And I'm like, I need to address them deeper. And I'm ready to do that. I mean, it's really helped like bring out my voice and be, feel safe and confident and less of an imposter because I, utilize so many different strategies to help soften that loud voice that's, you're not good enough for this or.
Our voice is so loud, isn't it? You just, I think I can really identify with all the just learning about who you are. It's things come up all the time. And I was saying to somebody yesterday that it was only the beginning of this year, actually, and I'm 43, that somebody pointed out to me, you get really angry over injustices in the world. And I stopped and I really thought about it. And I thought, yeah, I do actually. So I'm 43 and I've just worked that out for myself, you know. And doing these podcasts as well, the different people you're speaking to, the different therapies, the different experiences, it's like a therapy within itself. It's quite amazing and just learning all the time. But I think that is absolutely amazing. Um, you've been through so much, so much. And tell me about what you've
And
done to sort of discover yourself again.
um, well, I mean, the first 2 years it was a lot of just exercise. I was raised Catholic, so that was also another angle of issue, like going through my divorce, like anti-divorce because I'm Catholic, like, and it wasn't that my family didn't. My mom was like, "You can get a divorce, like it is okay, like this is not good," and I'm like, "No, like God's telling me I need to, figure this out," and I fought for it for 2 years, went to counseling, went to church. And I mean, I've lost my way with like God multiple times. Like when my dad died, I was very angry and bitter. Then I came back. Um, and then like with the marriage, I really like at the end of our marriage or like towards the end of our marriage, he was like anti going to church with me, like anti God. So then I started becoming that way. And when he wanted the divorce, I really had to like dig deep and, find my way back there. And so I was going to church more, but I was also doing a lot more like, self-guided prayer, doing, journaling, things like that. After we finally got divorced, again, 2 years, I literally lost sight of God. I was like, no, like I'm invincible. I'm just gonna, do my thing. No, no. Found my way back to the church after I quit drinking because it was just I needed to have like a structured discipline. And so like my working out every single day, like I, plan in active recovery days because I knew that was important. But on Sundays, I make myself get up and go to church. And for a while, it was fine. Like I didn't mind going. I got a lot out of it. And then they switched priests, and I was like, I was like so resistant to going. Why? And I just wasn't getting anything out of it. And I'm like, I don't have to be tied to like this Catholic faith. Like, I don't have to. Like, I can still believe in God and not have to go to this building. And I moved from Iowa to Colorado a year ago. And now a lot of my Sundays I spend literally going out hiking, and I feel way more connected to God than I ever have. So, I mean, that like really truly has made an impact. And then just, you know, being consistent with daily practices of, you know, journaling, meditation. Um, I do like subliminal messages that are in my voice because about a month ago, I was really struggling, like going into this competition, having my own business. Like, I was like just feeling defeated because I grew up with a mom that was not nurturing. So I didn't even really know how to nurture myself and nurturing all these other people in the world. I was like, I'm so fucking exhausted. Like, nobody's nurturing me. So my master mindset coach, she suggested, doing subliminals in my voice, like nurturing passive or positive affirmations. And I listened to them with like super high frequency music. And I mean, it has literally changed my life. And I do it, have different subliminals for different aspects, like for business, for just myself, for my voice. Like a lot of times I listen to them before I get on a podcast that it's safe to, speak my truth, to use my voice. And because I'd had to silence myself for so long. Like I just didn't know how to speak like fluidly. And I just felt like every time I'd speak, like I'd get stuck. And like, why am I so stuck in my words? Like, I know how to talk. Like, I can talk somebody's ear off, but I'd get so nervous and worked up.
Yeah.
And towards the end, like the last few weeks, or last few weeks prior to my competition, like I was so focused on getting through that. And like I was working out and having to do preparation stuff for almost 4 hours a day. So some of the self-care practices I was just becoming so resistant to doing because I got super high at one point and then crashed and hit a really dark point in the middle of preparing for the competition. And I hadn't been that dark since my dad passed away. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and that's when I, reconnected with my mindset coach and she coached me through some of that, the positive stuff. And I think I just got so scared from going into that. So the last couple weeks, I've been really focusing on doing the self-care. So I'm on day 6, no, day 7 of doing like guided meditations, which I'd been super resistant to because of getting so high and then crashing. And I was using those things. So like the last week I've mentally and emotionally felt a lot better. And leaning into those uncomfortable things, like you have to uncover them and you have to like just get yourself to do it. And I know it's hard and I fall into spirals and different things. Thankfully, alcohol has never been like something I want to reach for as a coping mechanism anymore. Um, and it really has not been. I mean, I could count on one hand how many times I've like, oh my God, I wish I could just go have a drink. Like it really didn't do me any favors. So it's like not really an option, but I'd rather like go run or something. And I know my body's exhausted. Like I can't do that either. So I just have to sit and like process these things.
That's it. And I think that's one of, excuse me, sorry, one of the worst things when you get sober, those feelings coming back and how to deal with them. And I've never been good with my feelings. My dad passed when I was 3. My mum died 5 years ago now. And especially when mum died, I was the one doing everything, I was the one trying to sort out the funeral and making sure everybody else was okay. And
Mm-hmm.
it's running between all the family members. And that's always been my role within the family. I'm the go-between. And trying to process it, I just didn't want to. I didn't want to reach for a drink, but I didn't want to acknowledge whatever was going on inside, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so important to do that. And it doesn't matter if you've been sober 3 weeks, 3 months, 3 years, 30 years, we can just fall into, like you said, that spiral. And doing things like listening to podcasts and having books there and stuff, just to remind you that there is support there and there's something just to make you stop and think things aren't going right at the moment. I need to stop. I need to reevaluate, like you said. There's something I need to do differently before it all starts heading the wrong way. And again,
Right.
like you said, it doesn't have to be alcohol or whatever you reach for. It could be spending all day on your laptop, working like and not
Mm-hmm.
resting or going to sleep. Um, Going for a run when your body's exhausted. So I always try and keep things dotted around the house just to like poke out at me when they need to.
Right. For sure.
And it can be so overwhelming as well when we get in recovery. Like I said, we've got to do journaling, we've got to do meditation, we've got to do readings, we've got to go to meetings, we've got to do this. And you're like, oh, like, how do I fit this all in and learn about me and try and whatever else is going on, work, kids, partner, how on earth do I do all this? So I think just not being so hard on yourself. And it doesn't matter if you miss a day of meditation. Don't beat
Right.
yourself up over it. Don't give don't make that be a reason to beat yourself up and say, well, I'm just going to drop meditation. Just give yourself a break, and tomorrow's a different day.
And that's the biggest thing is, I over the last 6 months, I have learned so many different tools, but I didn't implement them all at one time. So it's just like a gradual, like through my different programs I've done, different coaches I've had, they've all given me like one or two tools. And, by the time I get to them, like I've already instilled some of these other practices. So like, I've got 10 or more different practices. So no, you can't do them all at one time. And you can't have all of those things, but knowing like what tools are, good for a certain mood that you're feeling, or picking one that really journaling is something super important, even if you're just 5 minutes just writing down what you're grateful for, like how that little bit can shift like so much, just being consistent and adding them in periodically, and knowing like, oh, I have all these tools, like what am I feeling today, like I need to get back into doing a meditation. And I know like that's not something I need to do every single day, but I need to get back into the habit because something has been so uncomfortable and weighing on me. I don't know what it is. So I'm like, this is the only way I'm going to figure it out, is to really sit with myself and think and reflect. And I mean, it's definitely helped. And, today, this morning, I got up and I did, 3 different practices and less than, an hour. So it's like, it's not that time consuming. It's just, you have to take the time to sit and be with yourself. And it's hard.
Yeah. I still find it hard sometimes. And it's usually, like you said, when I don't want to face something, or I'm not feeling strong enough to experience those feelings at that time. So yeah, I completely get that. I think it's fantastic what you're doing, and some really, really relevant points. And just try, I love what you said about the subliminal messages. I think that's fantastic. Um, and people trying things as well. Try things a couple of times, and if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't matter. You've tried it. You can say that you've tried it,
Right.
it didn't work, but you never know if it might be something revolutionary for you. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it was just super great because when I was, struggling, like I was, working out, doing my, regular lifting, but to prepare for the competition, I had to do, a lot of cardio. So I was spending a lot of time cycling on my indoor bike. And I was like, instead of listening to some, upbeat music or something, you know, whatever, like I would just listen to the high frequency and put the subliminals in the background that I couldn't even hear them, but just like I used them to help me get past a weight. Like I just shouldn't say I needed. My goal was to get under like 145 pounds. Well, I knew that the last time I weighed that much, I was 144 after my dad passed away. And I mean, I was skin and bones because I just wasn't eating because I was so stressed. And I'd lost 20 pounds in the middle of a basketball season. Like I was miserable. It was like one of the toughest times of my life. And so I knew like that number, getting below that was going to be really hard for me, even though I was doing it in a safe and healthy way. So I used the subliminals to just like nourish my mind that it was okay, it was safe, that I was honoring my body, I was feeding it and I was fueling it and I was doing all of the things to safely get there. And it took me a while to get past that. Wait, like I was stuck at 145 pounds for 4 weeks and I'd been losing like a pound consistently a week. But once I got past that, like, I mean, I surpassed my weight goal, to get onto that stage. And I was like, I think that really worked. Like just reassured me. And a lot of emotions came up when I got to the, below 144 pounds that I had to process, that whole period of losing my dad and where I got to. And I mean, it was good to like let it out and process it and move on, but it was very hard to get there. And I knew that, but I just had to continuously nourish that subconscious feeling. And
I
I
think
feel, a lot of women struggle with that because, they do like a crash diet and it's not sustainable. And I can't even imagine how they feel because how I was feeling in such a restricted eating state, to get to that weight, to get lean enough to step on stage and your body fat gets so low, it gets an emotional like roller coaster. And so I can imagine how, these women are feeling that like I can never get back to that weight. Subconsciously, that's what they're thinking. Like they know they want to lose weight, but they just have this subconscious fear that, the last time I got to that weight, like I was miserable and I couldn't sustain it. So now I'm scared. And, you know, getting them to take, understand that doing it in a sustainable way,
yeah.
it's possible. And yeah, I mean, it was wild how, just nourishing my subconscious really just transformed so much.
That's brilliant. And I think before I go on to like how you help people now, I'm thinking you brought up something of like losing that weight and getting back down to a weight where you were where when you were really ill. It's
Mm-hmm.
that's got to be like a trigger, and we don't always know what's going to trigger us. Um, it could be that being bullied at school and having a lot of weight, for instance, obviously losing weight while you're using, but then starting to eat and worried that you're getting back up to that bullied or um, anything really. I know I've got a silly thing with food where I always used to get punished as a child if I never ate my roast potatoes. So I don't eat roast potatoes. I don't mind them, but a roast potato on a plate can really trigger me sometimes, and I've got to watch it and process it and be aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lucky I know a lot of my triggers, but sometimes we can be completely off balance and not sure why. And that's where journaling is great to sort of look back and see if there's anything in there that brings stuff up for you. Because
Mm-hmm.
somebody else losing weight might they might think that's a great thing, and why was that negative for you? And explaining it or saying it out loud, it makes complete and utter sense. So I think that's really important. Yeah, fair play to you. So how is it that you help women now? Because again, off the back end of that, I'm thinking for me, when I put the alcohol down, sugar, Um, I've been into rehab a few times, but the first time I really needed lots and lots of sugar when I came out of rehab. So I put on a lot of weight. I think the second time I wasn't too bad with sugar, but I could go days. I had a period of homelessness as well, so I could go days and days and days without eating, and it didn't bother me whatsoever. And of course, that's no good for you either.
Right.
Um, But yeah, how do you help women with their weight and fitness and all of that?
So, I mean, really building just sustainable plans for them, uh, getting them started with just simple habits of, in the first 30 days, the biggest thing is getting yourself moving. If they haven't been exercising, or even if they have been, just with the specific time frame that they have. Because a lot of people think that, you know, need to exercise is an all or nothing thing. I'm guilty of that. Um, but even just, starting with 2 or 3 days, doing home workouts, just building up a habit of moving your body. And then during that period, we kind of start assessing what they're eating and not making big changes in that at first, because taking on too many things at once just sets us up for failure. So, assessing what they're eating. And I find so many women are under eating, which increases their cortisol and stress because they're hungry and they've just learned to live in a hungry survival state and continuously put on weight knowing that they're only eating 12, 1400 calories. Like, why am I still gaining weight? Well, you're retaining a lot of fluid and a lot of inflammation, and you're not even giving yourself enough calories to sustain vital function, such as digestion and hormones. And, learn putting myself through some of this stuff because I personally have not had really any sort of bad relationship with food. So I could just never understand why, people would do that. And knowing what I know after the last 18 weeks of, putting myself in a starvation state, basically, um, it's uncomfortable. It's miserable. And so, I mean, helping them understand. So now that I understand, I can help them understand, and just making small changes and, what they're eating gradually instead of like overhauling, like, oh my God, you need to eat this, this, and this. But, just making simple swaps, starting them, focusing on just getting one balanced meal a day because there's, we're scared to eat because society has made us think that you need to eat less, move more. And if you're not giving yourself enough fuel to move and, fuel your muscles to grow, which, gaining muscle mass is going to help you burn more fat over the period of time. And, it's like what you said, like sugar addiction. Like I resorted to a lot of sugar after I quit drinking, not realizing like how bad that was. But I was also mindful because I kept saying like, because I was exercising a lot, but I also was like, what I'm putting in my body with like the sugar sweets is much more nutritious than the empty calories of the alcohol that I was drinking on the daily.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that helped me like overcome like that, but also making sure I was eating enough protein because, alcohol literally just wastes away at your muscles, because if you're drinking and not eating, or, when I was drinking, I was eating, really shitty, unnutritious food. So focusing on getting the protein to, restore my muscles and then filling in. So then it helped with the sweet addiction, making sure I was getting enough protein, but I mean, that addiction has reared its angry head lately since I'm out of my competition prep. And it's really forced me to have to look within and try to figure out what I'm trying to, like, what void I'm filling with that sugar right now because I went 18 weeks with dairy, minimal sweets, and sugar. So I'm like, I'm seeking some sort of instant gratification that it's not very gratifying because it's making me feel like shit. So,
But that is
just,
that. Yeah, sorry, gone.
you're fine.
Yeah, that's the thing though. That's don't beat yourself up for feeling like that, isn't it? We we do this, and the most important thing is being aware of it. I think awareness is more important than anything because if you can catch yourself, again, don't beat yourself up for having too much sugar or whatever. Even people, I remember relapsing once, and I went back into the drug and alcohol service, and the guy that was there, um, he was a huge, massive, like rugby player. And I got on so well with him. He used to work in the treatment centre where I was, and we got on really, really well, had all this clean time. And I walked in, saw him, and just instantly I felt about like that big. And all the shame, everything came back. And I went up to him and I went, I'm so sorry. I've let everyone down. He went, what are you on about? Shut up, sit down, let's sort you out. And then that was it. It was done. And I felt so much better after that. And I don't know why I was apologizing to him. It was like, I've done it to myself. But that instant, you've relapsed, so what? you're back here, you're asking for help, you're doing the right thing, let's crack on. So yeah,
Right.
it's you beat yourself up, you're never gonna get to that level again. You're not gonna move forwards and you're not gonna be happy. All you're doing is drowning your sorrows even more. So
Right.
yeah, we want
I know the last few weeks of, since my competition, I I haven't been beating myself up a lot about how much sugar I've been eating, like with the holidays, like there's so much around and it's just been hard. And I, try to make excuses why I deserve it. And I'm like, I don't really deserve it. But the other thing is my friend asked me, she's like, do you feel guilty or do you just feel bad? And I was like, honestly, I feel miserable when I eat it. Like I get bloated, my fingers swell, like I just don't feel good. And I'm like, why do I keep putting it in my body? Like that little bit of like 2-second gratification of putting that cookie in my mouth, like to feel like shit the rest of the day. Like, why am I doing this to myself? Like I don't know. I'm really like trying to focus on like what am I trying to suppress right now that I feel like I need that instant gratification of that cookie.
yeah.
And I'm not opposed, like I'm not saying it's bad and I'm not punishing myself, but I think a lot of it is I was so restricted for so long. And again, another lesson that, can carry over to a lot of these like restrictive diets that, we try to take on and then it leaves us binging more. Like I was restricted for 18 weeks and I had a clear vision to where I wanted to go with that restriction. And I did it. But now I'm like, because I was restricted for so long, I just like, I find myself binging on it. And I'm like, so, getting back into balance, like, okay, yeah, it's okay to eat, the sweet treats, but I got to get back into having a more structure, like, when is it appropriate for me to have this instead of constantly just like anxiously eating it.
Oh, you'd have a field day with everything I've got here. I've got my cookies, Christmas cookies, winter spiced cookies covered in chocolate. I've got the devil's worst thing, probably not as bad as alcohol, but just about energy drink.
Hey,
Absolutely full.
no shame.
Yeah, but I've got my vitamin there as well.
I mean, it's a balance thing though. And it's when we're self-aware of it, of those things, it
Yeah.
in time it will, work itself out. And I can't I can't just say no more cookies ever because that's not realistic. So I know once they're gone, my mom had sent me a big box of holiday sweets, and they're all my favorite things after I'd just gotten rid of all the sweets post competition. And I was like, damn. And but I'm like, I can't just throw them away.
It's a sign to eat them, isn't it? They're from your
Right,
mum, so you've got to eat them.
right. But, just giving myself a lot of grace and really addressing like what is the purpose? Like what am I, needing this for? And same with my clients. Like I encourage them, give yourself grace. Like you're going through a hard period, especially in the first few months of like making changes. Like your body is adjusting. And like I just was talking with one of my clients she'd been eating like 12 to 1400 calories a day, seeing a weight loss doctor, dealing with PCOS, like miserable. And I was like, first of all, you are not eating enough to even sustain like your digestion and your hormones, let alone, your energy to work with children all day and be on your feet. And, we made just one simple change. We added, she started doing home workouts for what worked for her was just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I was like, great. Like, I don't care that they're 3 days in a row and you take 4 days off. We're starting somewhere. You haven't been doing a structured plan. And, we met 1 month in and I just, encouraged her to try to eat one full meal. And the first, we met and like the glow on her face, she's energized. Her back pain is gone. I asked her, I was like, how's your back? And she's like, she had to think, she's like, I don't have any pain. And I feel like I can climb the stairs at work, like without a lot of effort. Like I can just feel my legs are stronger. I'm like, we're not stepping on the scale yet. We're not doing that because there's this huge adjustment period. And one thing she said to me was, the kids at school, after lunch, like they just hear my stomach gurgling and ask me if I'm okay. And she's like, I haven't had my stomach like, I was like, yeah, because you're eating a little bit more sustainable stuff, like your digestion's working. Like, because it'd been, very stalled and stagnant. So like her metabolism is stalled. And so I'm like, your body's going to go through changes, but just like seeing her glow and giggle and laugh. And I was like, girl, these are the small wins that are going to lead to huge changes.
Yeah.
And I mean, just even talking about it just gives me goosebumps because seeing these women thriving is what it's all about.
Beautiful. And as you said, it's like with anything that we do, if we're seeing that in ourselves, that and people are pointing out to us that we're glowing or we're laughing more, and it makes us feel good about ourselves. It's the natural
Mhm.
dopamine coming out in us, instead of all that manufactured stuff. And when we know something is having a positive impact, it does get ingrained in us that, yeah, this is good. This is healthy. We might have time off during the holidays or whatever, but if people are noticing a positive change, we're going to be more encouraged to keep it up. So I think that's absolutely amazing what you're doing. It is, really is. How can everyone find you?
So I have, you know, my Instagram is at Empowered Without Limits. And,
Love
I would
that.
love to give your guest my free Fearless Focus Guide of my top 9 strategies that I've compiled over the last year working with master mindset coaches. I just truly want women to feel at peace because it's been the most amazing feeling. And you can get that, in the show notes or at bit.ly/fearless focus.
Fantastic. I absolutely love that. Is there anything else you want to add?
Just a reminder that, you know, comfort kills growth and we have to get uncomfortable to make greatness happen.
Oh, yes. We definitely do.
Comfort kills has been my mantra through this whole journey. And, it just, every time we are faced with something that seems uncomfortable, that's when we have to lean in because that's when great things truly happen.
You're so, so right there. It's a big sign, isn't it, that you're on to something when you're feeling that uncomfort. And I think doing it, things like this, when you've got somebody like yourself where you can build a relationship with and trust and feel comfortable, you're going to get there so much quicker. Like, I've sat in rooms with people that you don't know and you've got to tell your darkest secrets, and that is so uncomfortable. And it would be uncomfortable talking to you as well, but only initially because it's building that relationship, getting it off your chest. You feel so much lighter. And then you'll take in more then. You'll take in more, you'll take in affirmations from other people as well. And I know a lot of us are really bad at doing that. If somebody says you're looking good today, don't say no, I don't. Just say thank you and leave it at that. Always just say thank you. Your hair looks nice.
That is
Thank you.
such a hard habit to break. And it's
Yeah,
something we have to be very conscious of. And, I've had to overcome that too. Used to just brush it off. And now it's just like, Mary, just say thank you.
it's really important. And after a while, you do start feeling good about the odd compliment instead of going, no, well, I haven't done my hair properly. I should have done this. Oh, I've got to brush my teeth this morning. How can you say I'm looking good? And stop it. Just thank you.
Yes. Yes. Just simply say thank you.
It's like that
It goes a
word
long
no,
ways.
isn't it? I still haven't mastered the word no. I'm forever trying, but I'm not there with no yet. But I've got there with thank you.
Hey, one step at a time, one
Definitely.
habit. You got it.
That is amazing. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's not too. I'm so pleased I've finally met you as well after just like a few little messages, and that is great.
Oh, yeah, for sure.